we have things to do, so we should get going.
Okay.
I call to order the meeting of the Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency, Tuesday, March 23rd, 6 p.m. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. John Mailing,
Here.
Matt Pence, Jennifer Bellier. I'm
here.
working on it. Farah Marin,
Here.
Steve Clockey,
Here.
John Levin,
Present.
Ed Holowinko.
Here.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cheryl Brown,
Here.
seated as an alternate.
Do you need me?
Well,
Because am I an extra at this
that's
point?
a loaded question. We need you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Technically, there are 7 regular commissioners present, and so you cannot be seated as a commissioner and
Okay.
cannot be voting. So
Okay,
enjoy
Then
your
I-
evening.
I will. Good night, all.
Good
Thank
night,
you, Cheryl.
Cheryl. Okay, for receipt and discussion, and decision, we have S20 562, 761 Main Avenue, construction of a new multifamily residence with associated stormwater management, flood storage, compensation, and landscaping adjacent to a wetland and the Norwalk River. And in connection with this application, we have a summary and draft resolution from staff, which presumably everybody has received and digested. Is there anyone representing the applicant with us tonight?
There is.
Yes.
Huh? No?
Yes.
Yes.
Here.
Oh, okay.
So that would be Lynn Ward and Lauren Calabria.
Yes.
Did I say
Okay.
that right?
It's Calabria, but close enough.
Calabria.
I've heard worse.
So sorry.
It's all right.
Does staff want to introduce this? I
Sure.
think
So
at this stage. Go
Sure,
ahead.
you've been talking about this application for a while. It is for development of a multifamily apartment building, as noted, within the adjacent to the upland review area in the Norwalk River. The actual building itself is for the most part outside of the upland review area. A corner of the building would be within the upland review area, and all the ancillary improvements and activities related to the installation of that building are regulated activities. The parking lot in which the building would be placed is going to be ripped up, milled, and regraded. It'll be restriped and reconfigured. In addition to the building, there will be changes to the proposed stormwater management system, and that will include bioretention filters and rain gardens at the end of the planting islands that are proposed within the parking lot. Also within your upland review area is at the southernmost tip of the property is a proposed flood basin for compensatory storage. The structure, the building itself is within the flood zone, and a portion of the building will be on grade. And so that portion removes some storage volume within the flood zone. And so to compensate for that, a compensatory storage basin is proposed. And that's that basin at the very end of the parking lot where there is going to be a proposed excavation. And I think at the last meeting, the landscape architect talked about the proposed planting plan for that basin. Other than that, the applicant did propose a landscaping plan in addition to the landscaping of the flood compensatory storage basin. They are proposing some enhancement of the strip of buffer that is between the existing edge of parking lot and the river. The existing edge of parking lot, though it will be ripped up and redone, is proposed to be the same as the proposed edge of parking lot. In the draft resolution, which you can take or dismiss, there are 10 special conditions that I added based on some of your comments. A lot of them are special but somewhat boilerplate special conditions at this point. The first is to provide photo documentation. The second is a bond for some of the work. And again, the bond would be for most of the plantings and then sedimentation or erosion controls. And it's broken up into a portion that is for the what I would call wetland mitigation plantings, and then other plantings that would be held for two full growing seasons, which is something that you typically do. Talks about sedimentation erosion controls being installed. It has a condition regarding any discharge of water from any dewatering operations, that the permittee make sure that dewatered material is clean before discharge, because I presume that any discharge will eventually end up in the Norwalk River. Special condition number 6 clarifies post-construction maintenance of the stormwater management system. I will add, I think that you can, if you decide to adopt the resolution tonight, the special condition 6 refers to the snow management plan dated March 9th. The applicant today did submit a revised snow management plan that clarifies that it would begin next season and would continue, with the understanding that it would be modified in the future once there's a building in the middle of the parking lot, if you do approve it.
What do you mean by next season?
Next snow season.
Oh,
I'm hopeful that we won't have snow.
oh, okay.
that amounts to the need to pile any in the parking lot for the rest of this season.
Okay.
And on a day like today, I think that's a good bet. Special condition 8 says that once work actually begins, that it be completed within 2 years, so that it limits the amount of time that there is an active construction site so close to the river. Talks about the once everything is done, giving again photo documentation of the plantings, and if anything changes, it comes back to you. So that kind of in a nutshell is the draft resolution. Feel free to discuss, add.
Do any commissioners have questions regarding either the application as you understand it, or the memorandum from staff dated March 18th?
Yes, Commissioner, I do have a statement. So I think Jennifer and I are not allowed to vote on this matter. So I'm just wondering if they're.
Yeah, so that is correct. I wanted to get to that as well as I go over the voting sheet. You were seated after its receipt, and in the past that has been the deal, to not vote on something that predates you. So Commissioner Mailing, that leaves you, Commissioner Pence, Clocky,
11.
and Halowinko.
Okay, there's enough of us.
Yes.
I move that we grant the application number S20-562 for 761 Main Avenue as under the conditions outlined in staff's memorandum dated March 18th on this same application. Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Is there discussion? Last chance for discussion, folks. Okay. All in favor? I think we take a voice vote. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, the application is, the motion carries. The application's granted.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Good job.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. We have, I'm conscious that we have two more discussion or decision items, and then we have probably a holiday until 7 o'clock when the public hearing is scheduled to begin. Unless there's some way we can, well, we'll see how we do. Alexis, I think we can move some things up, can we not? I mean,
Yes,
rather than
once-
have a whole half hour that we don't do anything.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, once you get
Okay.
through these other discussion and decision items, absolutely.
all right, let's just take them in order. Then the next one, under 4B is S2563, 57 Noah's Lane Extension. Suyuwada. And that's the best I can do. It's got to be close because I've been practicing. Okay, installation of on-site septic system, patio shed, retaining wall, fence and paths in and adjacent to a wetland and water course. Do the applicants have anything more that they would care to contribute here? Than what we've already seen and considered?
Good evening. For the record, Abigail Adams, registered landscape architect with A2 Land Consulting out of New Fairfield. We did email revised plans to Alexis on Friday, March 12th. So I'm assuming everybody has seen that. We did make some modifications based again on your discussion and some of your recommendations. We've pushed the boulder wall at the playgrounds area 2 feet away from the tree as requested. We shifted the shed an additional 2.5 feet away from the wetlands and therefore pulled the boulder wall back even farther. So now the corners of the shed are between 13 and 14 feet away from the wetlands. And I did make a mistake on my plans. There are 2 trees that are located in the upland review area. There's an 8-inch maple and a 12-inch ash, which do need to be removed as part of it. I apologize. They were on some frozen layer in my CAD file. So I'm very sorry about that, but I'm hoping that our robust replanting plan will satisfy the need to remove those 2 trees. Those were the changes.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Hearing none. We have a memorandum from staff dated March 19th, which sets out conditions under which this application could be granted. And I move that, in fact, it be resolved that this application be granted, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in the staff memorandum. Do I hear a second?
I wish to
I'll
second
second
that.
that.
motion. Oops.
Okay.
Sorry, John.
What? Okay, anyway, moved and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, verbal vote, I think. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes and the application is granted.
Okay, so that was 6 in favor and one no, correct? Okay. Mr. Halloween.
Is Ed on board here?
What's that?
Is Ed Holloway on board?
Nope, that was one vote. not in favor of the motion.
Okay,
Ed is here. I don't know if we can hear him that well.
Can you hear me?
oh, there he is, okay.
Okay, but motion carries 610.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay.
for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Shadow Lane is not before us tonight, is that correct, Alexis?
Correct. They are still working on revising their plan and sorting out their issues. So I did have a conversation today with the applicant's landscape architect and laid out all of the statutory timelines that the commission is under for making a decision, which again is 65 days from the date of receipt, plus an additional 90 days per the governor's order. And then the applicant has the potential to grant an additional 65-day extension of time.
Okay,
So they are working on sorting out their site plan, and it basically comes down to requirements for doing work within the flood zone. And
you mean for the work being done?
the work, the proposed work, in addition to the work that was already done, the property owner is obligated to do some documentation for FEMA regarding work that was previously approved on the house structure itself. And we want to make sure that he completes all of those requirements prior to having permission to do anything else.
But those requirements, apart from our wanting them completed, they don't, by definition, fall under our purview, do they?
Correct. That's part of the flood hazard regulations of the zoning permits.
Okay. There is, I mean, it's more appropriate for us to discuss this after we have an actual application before us, is it not? It's a lot easier, I think. I
Right.
mean,
Well, you do
I've
have-
been out, and looked at it, and I have, comments to make, but I'd rather make them in light of an actual application rather than what we think is going to be an application.
Gotcha. Right. So they have an application before you, but they are working on potentially revising what they've proposed within that application.
All right. Okay, so that just falls under the heading of discussion for tonight's purposes.
Right.
John, could I move to amend the agenda?
Oh, that'd be
Yes,
great.
please.
Could we skip the public hearings and the discussion and or decision for S21-566? And postpone them until 7 o'clock?
Yes, please.
I second that. All in favor, any discussion? I doubt it. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, we're now up to item 7, which is entitled permit transfer. And to avoid any possible appearance of impropriety, I am going to recuse myself from anything to do with this particular item. So Steve, if you'll just handle it, that would be great.
Sure.
Alexis, over to you, Alexis.
All right. And you can just maybe mute and turn off your screen until you hear us holler for you, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my earphones off and put something over the screen.
Okay, so this is a permit transfer. The permit itself, number S15-463, was approved in August 2015, and it allows the construction of a 15-unit conservation development in and adjacent to wetlands and watercourses at 78 Cranberry Road, Norwalk, Connecticut. So the permit that was approved in 2015 has a lot of the similar special conditions and general conditions that all your permits have. All of your permits have a general condition that says that the authorization is not transferable without the written consent of the Norwalk Inland Wetland Agency. And that's in there to keep you informed of who is holding any permit that you issue. This property is also known as the White Barn property, which you may have heard of. No work was done since 2015, in part because of the previous owner, the principal of the LLC that was the owner, did pass away, and there has been efforts throughout the years particularly spearheaded by the Norwalk Land Trust and I think it's called Save Cranberry, to purchase the property for open space. That was in the end unsuccessful, and a new owner owns the property. The new owner has submitted a permit transfer request and is asking that the permit be transferred to the new owner of record, which is 440 Newtown LLC. They did submit the required permit transfer request form. There's not a lot to see. Who are you? What do you want? How do we contact you? And they did pay the small administrative fee. Nothing else in the permit is changing. The permit is still valid. It has not expired yet. And they are at this point just seeking to change the name on the permit from Special Properties LLC to 440 Newtown LLC. And so this is one of those items. It's not necessarily an action item where you would approve or deny, but you would merely go on the record as accepting or receiving the application to transfer a permit. So.
Anybody have questions about that?
Just
Comments?
Just a quick question. When would have that permit expired?
Okay, so the state legislature, I did not have a chance to look up when this changed. I think it was in 2009. The longevity of inland wetland permits is dictated by the enabling legislation and your state legislators. And they changed when permits expire during the Great Recession. They actually changed it multiple times, but then what they ended with is linking inland wetland permits that have any approvals from the zoning, that require a zoning approval or a planning approval, to the those approval expiration dates, or 10 years, whichever is earlier. So if there's no related zoning approval, it's 10 years. If there's a zoning approval that expires in a time frame shorter than 10 years, then it's that zoning approval. I believe that still doesn't answer your question, Matt. The conservation development received a special permit number 5-15 SP in 2015 from the Zoning Commission, and they have received some extension of time that gets them until April 6th, 2021. They can, and I believe that they plan to apply for yet another extension of time. And just to clarify, that extension of time is that the deadline for within the special permit, one of the conditions is a deadline to obtain building permits. So not to complete the work, but just to get building permits to do the work. And currently the deadline for obtaining a building permit is April 6, 2021. But they can ask for an additional extension of time from that. And extension of time is one of those things that is, if nothing else substantial has changed with the proposed development or with the land, then that's a little hard to not grant. It's slightly different, but similar to a permit transfer in some ways.
Thank you.
Okay, so if nobody else has questions or comments, so how do we record our receipt of this?
I guess you can make a motion to accept it, kind of like you would the minutes, that you're not necessarily approving them, you're kind of accepting them as complete or complete with edits. This would be kind of an accepting of the transfer, that you're now aware that the permit would be held in the name of the Norwalk or 440 Newtown LLC.
So moved. Second? Can I make that motion? Oh, Ed seconded.
Nope, Ed seconded.
Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Blah, blah.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's
next
get-
item on the agenda, if that's okay with you, Alexis?
Yep, and John Malin, you can return if you like.
Oh, yeah. I was just getting warmed up.
I know this is left that guy in the dust.
John.
Might be kind of hard since he took his headphones out,
There
I
you go.
know.
his camera.
Okay,
There he is.
There he is. Hi, John.
this has just been terrific. Thank you, Steve. You could keep doing it for all me, but anyway, we're now up to Roman numeral 8, enforcement actions. A is V21-1018, 4.5 Mile Road, Lafano, show cause hearing, clearing and deposition of material in and adjacent to a wetland and water course without a permit. Staff, comment?
Okay, let me just share some. So it's a violation. Let me share my screen. Let's see. Hold on, let me getting some other maps up. Okay. So here is, zoom out. This. 1/2 Mile Road is off of Grumman Avenue, just north of the Merritt Parkway. And there's a little wetland and watercourse system here. 4.5 mile is this outlined property here. And so basically they have a house and driveway, fully developed property in the front. And in the back, they have an area that I'd characterize as a standing water swamp, which which is a water course by the wetland definitions, and then some amount of wetlands. The wetlands on the property have not yet been field delineated. The property behind it on Grumman Avenue had its wetlands flagged some time ago. And, you know, it's, if you were to extend to the topographic line that's here on this side of the property, it would come kind of halfway up the lawn. But I suspect that historically there's been filling in the backyard that would mean that the wetland line is pretty close to the water course. The area that I'm talking about, where there's a potential violation, or where there is a violation, sorry, is this red hatched area on the map. And so historically there was a white picket fence that you'll see in some of the aerial photographs that I'm about to show. And this side, or the south side of the picket fence, has been lawn for a long time. And then the other side of the picket fence was more natural vegetation. Switch to the aerial photos. So this is in 2018, what the property looked like. There's that fence. And again, a kind of a wooded condition. And then, oh, there it is again. Again, the fence, lawn, wetland and water course. And then what they were cited for were two different activities. One is, this happens to be the aerial photo captured in April 2019. Apparently they were working on their driveway and had a contractor with some machines that you can kind of see through the woods. And they were stockpiling some material in the front here, but then they were also driving, you can see the tire marks, through the backyard, opened an area in the gate, and then deposited construction debris, concrete, and other debris in this location here. And again, in this location here, this is also April 2019. So that was in April 2019. And then my recent site inspection, which I'll have to share, I'll find those photos. What has happened is that they've removed the fence and they've done some limited clearing of vegetation all along where the fence was and piled that vegetation right along the edge of the water course. So I issued them an order to stop work and to fix the violation. I think you received a copy of that order. I have met with them since I issued the order. They're aware that they have a violation. They do not plan to attend tonight. Let me just make sure that they're not here. They felt like they did not need to attend the show cause hearing because they know that they have a wetland violation. So they seem to be working on doing the steps that are listed in the directives. The first would be to have a soil scientist figure out exactly where the wetland is. The second would be to file for an application that shows how they're going to remove the deposited material from the wetland and water course. And then the third would be to implement that permit and then move along. I found out that they had a violation when they have a zoning application to do a rear addition. And when that rear addition application came to me for review, I said, well, I need to go out and have a look just to figure out if the backyard is wetlands or not. When I had a look, I saw the large piles. And then when I returned to the office, I used the aerial photographs to kind of figure out the lay of the land. And that's when I could clearly see the previous deposition of the construction debris. So that's kind of the story there. Just to review, a show cause hearing, generally I would, for a show cause hearing, I would explain why I've issued the enforcement order. The respondent, if they wish, can appear to show cause or to show why they don't feel that they have a wetland violation, or to show cause as far as like any of the directives, if they don't think that they're in line with rectifying the violation, if they admit they have a violation. And then the agency would close that show cause hearing, and then you have 10 days to make a decision whether to uphold the order, withdraw the order, or somehow uphold and modify the order. You have 10 days, but I always recommend that you do it at this meeting, since your next meeting isn't scheduled for 14 days, and otherwise you'd have to get together again. So that's it for my explanation for this show cause.
Can we make that decision based on your testimony, shall we say?
Yes. Yes, and please.
Well, I move that we sustain the corrective activity proposed as we understand it. I don't have anything to point to specifically here. Maybe I should, but I don't.
That's okay. I think it's clear what you're.
I mean, so my motion is on the floor that we should uphold, and this is where discussion would occur if anyone has.
Well, you need a second.
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Whose voice is?
So moved and second.
All right.
Right. Is there discussion? Will be.
I have a question.
Yeah, John.
Is this procedure normal course for a violation? As far as I can tell, the city conservation inspector was doing her job, and I don't. I'm just wondering, is there a need for the Conservation Commission to affirm or sustain the cease and
Restore order
that you issued to the homeowner?
Okay, so yes, since it is an order, it is required that the Inland Wetland Agency hold a show cause hearing on it and confirm or withdraw the order. For enforcement remedies are laid out in your regulations, and it starts with a notice of violation. And a notice of violation is within my notice of violation, I include directives, but it is really kind of a notice. So it's not it reads like you have a violation, you need to do this, but legally it's just a notice, whereas an order, so that's kind of like often my first step. And then the next one up would be the issuance of an order, where you are ordered to stop work, you're ordered to take these steps to remedy the violation. And again, going back to state statute requires that the agency hold a show cause hearing within 10 days of the issuance of any enforcement order. So that's my long-winded answer to where I could just say yes.
But it's so we have observed I want to use the word evidence, lacking anything better to say, the illustrations, graphics, the testimony, the other things that staff have presented in a situation where there seems to be at least the beginnings of agreement between staff and the other side. Technically we needed a show cause hearing, which we have had. And now we have moved and seconded that we will uphold the situation as it is progressing through staff. Is that reasonable?
That's
So
fair. And so just going back to John's question regarding why was this maybe not a notice of violation?
Oh, no, no,
Is-
no. My question
that-
was the motion, was Commissioner, was the chairman's motion necessary for the commission to satisfy its requirements and obligations? That's really my question.
Okay. And yes, it is. Gotcha.
It is.
It is.
Okay, so
Yes.
just having the show cause hearing is not sufficient, and that
Right. So you must,
the commission must itself have some conclusion at
correct. So you
subsequent
must
to that,
hold a show
okay.
cause hearing within 10 days. And then I believe it is, if my memory is failing, but I believe that, and then the agency must render a decision within 10 days of the conclusion of that show cause hearing.
Is it appropriate to ask a hypothetical? What would be the result if we were to move to not uphold this?
Yeah, it has happened once before, but I try not to remember that.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you can make the ruling that you withdraw an order for whatever reason, hopefully you articulate the reason on the record, and then that would be withdrawn.
And that would be the
And
end
then
of it. The pile would stay, the junk
Yep.
would stay. Okay, thank you
It's a-
very much. Okay,
It's a
that's-
checks and balances sort of thing. I mean,
Right,
Yeah,
we're
Okay.
here to, yeah.
right. So it's basically when I step it up and really order someone, it gives the respondent, kind of an assurance through this kind of process that I'm not abusing any power, that the commission gets to look at the facts and determine whether there really is a violation or not.
any further comments or discussion or questions? So we
I
have
just
a-
have a quick
Yeah.
question for Alexis.
Yes.
Alexis, when you were talking over the property, you had mentioned the property behind them in the back had their wetlands areas flagged.
Yes.
I just didn't know what you meant by that, just so
Oh,
I'm still
absolutely.
learning.
Yes, they had their wetlands field delineated. So they had a soil scientist come out to their property and actually
Oh,
use
I
their
see.
little auger to figure out where the line between upland soil and wetland soil. And we call field delineated wetlands flagged wetlands a lot of times because wetland scientists or soil scientists like to leave little flagging
Yes.
tape along that line. So, good
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, we have moved and seconded. All in favor can say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay.
Moving along. Maybe. Subsection B, V 21-1019, 230 West Norwalk Road, Moraine, if I've said it correctly. This is failure to follow terms, limitations, and conditions of a wetland permit issued previously, S 19-531. And we have an enforcement order in hand.
Right. So this is also.
That's the original. That's the original permit.
Right on the screen is the original permit.
Right.
So this is another order. It's the same kind of thing. It's an order, but this happens to be a permit violation order. But since it's an order, it still comes before you. The respondent is not here. But the respondent has made steps to rectify their non-compliance with their permit. And so they did receive a permit in June 2019 to construct a new house adjacent to the 5 Mile River and a tributary. We'll just scroll down. It was really the first 3 conditions that they did not meet. So these all start with the words prior to the commencement of any on-site work. to give photo documentation of what it looks like before they started, to post a bond, and to install silt fence, and to have silt fence installed by conservation staff. Also, within the general conditions of the permit, it requires that they contact the conservation office 24 hours prior to the start of work. I was at the adjacent property, excuse me, for a minor permit for a generator when I noticed that there was a foundation installed at this property. So they have certainly begun earth moving, initial grading, excavation for the foundation, and for pouring of the foundation. So I had sent them an email letting them know that they needed to post the bond immediately and to install the silt fence in the correct location immediately. And I had given them a deadline. And when I did not have an adequate response by that deadline, I decided to issue the order. It was issued on March 19th. So it was on, last Friday. I have not received the green card from them. It was mailed certified return receipt, but I did send it via email to both of the respondents listed on the correspondence. Since then, they have posted the bond, and I think are looking for photographs of the site beforehand if they have any. And then I did not get out there as planned to check their silt fence today, but I am under the impression that the silt fence is installed in all the correct places.
So it is.
I guess I would still recommend that you uphold the violation. They were in violation. They aren't anymore, but they're working towards a kind of a complete compliance status. And so as soon as they are compliant, I would issue them a notice of you checked, you've done it.
Well, I think it's an ongoing situation, but we need to support and sustain staff's observations here. And I would move that we determine that the order should remain in effect. The order represented in the certified letter dated March 19th. I so move.
Second.
That was Matt Pence with the second.
Any discussion? I would only mention that I recall this original property. This was very interesting, where we tried to find the border of the wetlands, wandering through the Pachysandra on the hillside.
Mhm.
It wasn't easy. So it's more reason to make sure that we've got everything buttoned down and in writing. So we have a motion and a second, and if hearing no further discussion.
Actually, I have a quick question, and it's the same one as before, and my guess is it's probably the same answer. But is the commission required to affirm the cease and restore order of the staff, or?
Yeah, you're required to make a decision whether to affirm or withdraw, or to affirm and modify. Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I think it's a little more formal this time than it was on the last one, but okay. Any further discussion or questions or observations? None? Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The order is determined to remain in effect. On violation enforcement order V21-1019. Okay. We have 10 minutes. We're up to approval of minutes. I've not seen them. Are we?
No, I have not finished writing them yet.
No explanation necessary. We'll move on. Do we have registration of people who wish to speak to us tonight?
So if, I mean, right now, we don't have any members of the, for the public hearing you're referring to? I
Yes,
assume?
the public comments.
Right, so once we're not quite there yet for opening the public hearing, but once we do, I will note that there was one written correspondence received, but otherwise, I don't believe that there are two attendees, and they may want to speak, but we'll get to that once we open the public hearing. They're
Oh.
both related to the applications.
Oh, they are. So there's nothing that's unrelated to the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, so then we have time to move on to comments of staff.
I'll just quickly run down some of the minor permits that I issued since the last meeting, and if an address strikes you, just let me know, but just so that you're aware of minor permits that are, again, staff approved, minor. 10.5 Tolsom Avenue is building a deck next to a pond. 15 Lancaster, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. That's a declaratory ruling. 490 Westport Avenue is installing paddle tennis courts adjacent to a water course. 232 West Norwalk Road is installing a generator and a connection to a liquid propane tank. 21 Knollwood is installing a geothermal wells adjacent to a water course. And 21 Flicker Lane is constructing a new single-family residence, and part of the disturbance, but not the residence, will be within the upland review area of a water course. And that is it.
And these are activities which have been brought before the staff and may be considered and dispensed by staff without the commission being involved, unless we point to one or another and say it's something we'd like to see more about.
Right.
Am I
These are all
correct?
all
right.
minor permits. They're also all listed. Anytime a minor permit is issued, the notice of its issuance is listed in the legal notice section of the hour, and that decision can be appealed. And if anyone does appeal, no one's appealed in years I've been doing this, but if anyone ever does, then it automatically comes before you.
Well, I was seized by the someone up on Westport Avenue is putting a couple of tennis courts next to a wetlands
That's the gym, Intensity Gym. I don't have it in front of me. It's an existing commercial building. Hold on.
But in your view, it's not something that we need to look at?
No, I'll show you the aerial photo real quick. I'm going to just use Google Earth. It's not share my screen. So it's at, oh, okay. It's at, so Intensity Gym is this building and parcel here. Intensity Fitness, tennis, squash, and dance. And they're proposing paddle tennis courts along this area in the back of their building here. And adjacent to the, what are these condos called? I'm blanking on the name. But there is a water course that rims this development here. So they're technically within the 100-foot upland review area of the little intermittent stream that is in these trees here.
Okay.
but they're not anywhere near a wetland or any other wetland watercourse resource.
Well, in my view, I would leave it to the discretion of staff.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any comment on staff's comments? Okay, the only thing left is comments of commissioners and adjournment. I think we're probably a report of the commission chair. I have no report. If any other commissioners would care to make a comment in the few minutes we have, we can. Do we have to make a motion to go back to the public hearing?
No, your public hearing will just begin at 7. You're good.
Okay. Anyone?
Mind if I just step back for a second? Alexis, you mentioned the installation of a geothermal well. Do you see a lot of those?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I see, every great once in a while, but
You know how far down they have to go in building that well?
I can look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head for that one. But I can let you know tomorrow. But I don't remember off the top of my head.
Is it a source for like residential heating?
Yes, right. It includes a heat pump installation.
You repeat
Okay.
the address of or location of that application?
21 Knollwood Road. Knollwood is off of Highland Avenue in Rowayton, kind of go past the Brian McMahon High School and for just a little bit, and it will be on the right.
I have two quick questions if there's any time remaining before 7 p.m.
There is.
Okay. One is I'm wondering if, Alexis, you might be able to draw from the commission's archives. You referenced a time when the commission did vote to rescind a show cause order. And I'm wondering if you can describe when and where and why that happened.
Oh, that's painful, John. I can, how about I look it up for the next meeting? I don't remember what the year was. It was, but I can find the whole file for the next meeting.
I
And,
just want to be enlightened as to what might have, led to that set of circumstances. It's just,
right.
It seems quite out of the ordinary.
It was, and I will, I'll pull that file for the next meeting.
Thank you. My other quick question is, looking back to the violation and CNR order that you issued with 230 West Norwalk, the
Yes.
original permit from 2019, condition number 6 requires submission of a contractor agreement. And I'm wondering, was condition 6 satisfied? Because as I understand it, you discovered the violation as a result of inspecting a neighboring property.
Right.
And, but if they had followed condition 6, they would have submitted a contractor agreement and you would have known that there was work that was going on
Right.
there. Did that occur?
Excellent question. So no, it did not. And that is, I included that in that permit, even though so the applicant and the eventual permit holder is actually the contractor. So the letter was sent to the property owner of record and also to the permittee, who is also the contractor. So technically I had the contractor's agreement by his application in the first place, but very, very good question.
Understood. Great. Thank you.
But
Okay, it's now close enough to 7 o'clock that I think we may prepare to open the public hearing. We have one item for discussion and listening. Number S21-566 to Wilson Avenue, 6 taxing district. Alteration and expansion of parking lot with associated stormwater drainage management adjacent to a wetland and water course.
okay.
There is a second, there's a number 2 listed here, which is identical. And I wonder
Oh, right. So you, if you choose to, on the agenda, there's a public hearing on the item tonight. If the public hearing is closed tonight, then once the public hearing is closed and you've closed the record, it is on the agenda again for your continued discussion if you get that far. So that is what
Okay.
that item is for.
Okay.
Um,
This proposal's been presented to us. Do we have any new information?
Yes, so if we want to, let's, to start the public hearing, let me just take the roll call again and take care of some procedural stuff, and then we'll get into the application itself, if that's all right.
By all means.
All right, so we have John Mailing,
Here.
Steve Clocky,
Here.
Ed Holowenko.
Here.
Jen Balliet. Am I
Here.
saying that wrong?
Belliet.
Balliet.
Perfect.
John Levin,
Present.
Farah Marin.
Here.
I think that's it.
Here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Matt Pence. I thought I said you already. My apologies.
All good.
Okay. So notice of the public hearing was published in the Norwalk Hour. It appeared on Saturday, March 13th and Thursday, March 18th, with information regarding how to log into this virtual world that we're on. And likewise, I did receive notice from the applicant that the budding property owners were notified, if I recall.
Yes.
Adam will correct me if I'm wrong. And then just for housekeeping, there are 3 attendees currently, Kevin Conroy and Tammy Langalis. Are they part of the application?
Yes.
Okay, and so, and then is the other person part of the application or an unknown?
I'm not, can I
It's a-
tell?
Yes,
I don't know if it shows on my screen.
okay.
I can't see who the third is, so I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Should I bring them over, Alexis? To
yeah, I
be with
think
us?
can bring Kevin and Tammy
Okay.
over. I was just trying to figure out if they were part of,
I don't-
connected with the application, or if they were going to speak, if they were planning to speak as a member of the public.
I believe, my guess is, my assumption is a member of the public. I'm not aware of us missing anybody.
Oh, okay. No, for Tammy, for Miss Langalis is my question.
Oh, I think if you bring her, I don't believe she has sort of prepared remarks, but
Okay.
it may be a benefit if she's here,
Okay.
if the commissioners have questions of her.
Okay. All right. So with that, you are welcome to begin your presentation for the public hearing. And just to review public hearing procedures for anyone new to the public hearing process, typically there is a presentation from the applicant, and then the members of the public, if any, are invited to submit comment. The comment is not necessarily a back and forth, but it's a kind of a one-time opportunity to submit a statement that is to help the commission be more informed in making their consideration of the application. Then if the commission has any questions of the applicant, you can ask away. Once the public hearing does end, that is it for new information. That closes the record, and you have to make your decision based on all of the information presented prior to the close of the hearing.
Thank you.
Kind of it in a nutshell.
And Ms. Cerchetti, if I can just add on to that, I hope that with the chair's blessing that after the public speaks, that if any concerns are raised, that we be permitted an opportunity to address those concerns prior to the public hearing being closed.
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Blank. I live here in Norwalk. I'm the attorney for the applicant, which is the 6th taxing district. Now, I know that some or all of you saw our initial presentation, but as it's a public hearing, we will have to sort of retread some of that, which I apologize for. This is an application for a wetlands permit so that we can expand an existing parking lot, a municipal parking lot. That's a 43 space slot. We want to expand it by 18 spaces to 61 spaces. It's located at 2 Wilson. If I can share my screen. So can you all see me? Am I frozen?
Yeah, it didn't pop up anything.
How about now? Are we better?
Yep, I can
Yep.
see it now.
Okay. So 2 Wilson is located here with the wetlands area, generally speaking, in this way, which we'll go in a little more detail in a moment. And I will point out, so the property is, the bulk of it is 2 Wilson, but this is our property line here, and 140 Rowayton Avenue is a small portion of the proposed parking area. Mr. Conroy, who's on this Zoom meeting, is the owner of this other portion of land and has consented to and joins in this application. So with us tonight, we do have Mike Barbas, Tammy Langalis, I think John Igneri, the commissioners from the 6th taxing district. One or more of them will give you just a sort of a summary as to why this project was embarked on, why there's a need for this parking, some of the costs that may be associated with it, and some of the alternatives that were considered and deemed either not feasible or prudent. We also have Andy Similides. He's an engineer from Land Tech. He'll give you an overview of the site plan that I just pulled up. He'll also talk to you about some of the alternatives that were considered for the site for the expansion of the parking lot and rejected because those either weren't practical from an engineering perspective or potentially caused harm to the wetlands and were rejected in favor of the current application. Additionally, we have Tom Ryder, who's an ecologist, coastal resource and wetland scientist, also with Land Tech, who his office performed a wetland assessment that he'll review with you. And also go through the landscaping plan for the site with you. Kevin Conroy is on the call, and I think if he may add at the end of the presentation, if there's something that some of our folks have missed that he wants to add, he'll raise that with you folks. We're happy to answer any questions that you have along the way. Just to refresh everyone, you've got Rowayton Avenue here, Wilson here. The site has access from Rowayton Avenue, as well as there's an access point on Wilson currently. I'm not going to go through the site plan or the landscaping or the wetlands. We'll let the experts do that. I'll just point out to the chair's earlier question about changes from the prior version that you saw to the current one. There have been a few changes. The first, which I won't go into detail on, but I think either Tom or Andy will, there are pervious pavers now proposed for the entire row of parking closest to the wetland buffer area. This used to be just asphalt, and we think that's a significant improvement to the design. There was some water quality improvements to the catch basin as well since our initial presentation. And we've also looked at some landscaping improvements, and I think that the landscaping, which Tom Ryder will go through with you, is changed, I think, significantly from what was initially presented. And I think it's a much, much better, more comprehensive plan to protect the wetlands and the buffer area than what was initially proposed to you just a few weeks ago. Before I turn it over to Mike Barbas and the taxing district commissioners, I'll just address there. We did receive, as your staff pointed out, there was one letter from a neighbor, actually, just so hopefully we won't freeze again, over here at 8 Wilson, who had a concern about, who had a number of concerns expressed in their letter. That was from Miss Jennifer Jackson and Martin Hakala or Hasala. The bulk of their concerns were really zoning concerns. They related to things like traffic and lighting and turning radius, things like that. Almost all of those concerns are in fact zoning. They're sort of outside of your purview. If we're fortunate enough to get your approval on this wetlands permit, we do have to file for a CAM site plan application with the Zoning Commission, which will require the Zoning Commission to hold its own public hearing and will allow the same neighbors will get notice again of that, and will have an opportunity to be heard at that time on their concerns that don't relate to wetlands. They did raise a couple of, I'll say, wetlands related issues. Number one, they had, which I think was sort of supportive of our proposal, they had some comments about the existing landscaping, and they noted that the buffer is predominantly dead vegetation, invasive species, unattractive and useless, with only one tree of any significance. And we agree that the existing landscaping is not the greatest for protecting the wetlands, and the proposed one will substantially improve and protect the wetlands, which is why we think the plan is actually an improvement over the existing conditions. They did have some landscaping concerns related to wanting evergreens instead of some of the vegetation that was proposed, and that was really simply because they'd like visual screening, not because there was a concern about the landscaping proposed having any negative impact on the wetlands. Screening in that sense, I think, is more suited for the Zoning Commission. And truthfully, if they would like screening, any property owner can put screening on their own property. They can screen this off easily with a row of arborvitae on their property line. But again, we think that our landscaping plan, as it currently is, more than adequately takes care of any concerns in the buffer area. I guess with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Barbas.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. As Adam introduced, I'm one of the commissioners for the 6th Taxing District, and my colleagues are also on this call. And, we are proposing an improvement to the current lot as well as an expansion. And the original lot was built in 2001 and has been used more and more as time has gone on, and as more things have happened downtown, and as more people have gotten used to the parking lot being there. It is kind of hidden away with landscaping, so you have to kind of go looking for it. So it has, we're seeing it. It used to be just full on occasion when there was Shakespeare on the Sound and the Farmers Market, which are located in Pinckney Park, which are just across the street. But as our downtown has returned to life, we're seeing it fuller and fuller. And the latest catalyst was the sale of a series of buildings at 159 to 165 Rowayton Avenue with 7,500 feet of retail space. Those stores were empty for 20 years, and they were bought in 2014. They were renovated. Then they asked too much money, and really a lot of tenants wouldn't take the space because there was no parking. They were grandfathered through a zoning code for 26 spaces, fictional spaces that didn't exist. But there is a lot of demand for parking in that downtown, and that's why this lot has been used more and more. And in fact, the biggest space in these empty storefronts has a new tenant in just the last couple months. And our lot is pretty much full Monday through Friday, every day. So that is kind of the case for why we're doing this. We have the support of all the merchants downtown, everyone from our neighbor 140 Rowayton Avenue LLC to Rowayton Wines, the Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, William Ravis Real Estate, Brown Harris Real Estate, the Rowayton Art Center, the Barber Shop, Sales Restaurant, Rowayton Market. So everyone downtown is in favor of this and realizes the need for this. So obviously, as commissioners, we're stewards of the property, and we represent taxpayers, and we're supposed to do things, with as little money as possible and be as fiduciary careful as possible. So as we looked at this, we were like, how can we do this most cost effectively and environmentally sensitive manner? Because we know those woods we own, those are wetland. So we looked at a bunch of proposals. We put it out an RFP. We hired Land Tech, and we looked at a series of proposals, which Alexis has seen. And really, we considered everything, including a parking structure, which is very, very expensive. And this is what we came up with. And with input from her, we fine-tuned it to be really as environmentally sensitive as it could be. If we have to cut the number of spaces back, the project really becomes uneconomic for us. It's just, we can't justify spending that kind of money. We couldn't justify building a parking garage of some sort of double decker, which, as I said, we looked into. So a lot of thought did go into this, and we've refined this plan now on multiple times to get it to be as good as it possibly can be. So that's why we're presenting this. It is, we know where it's located, and we're trying to be as environmentally sensitive as possible with everything we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike. Adam.
Sure. So, thanks, Mike. I just the one thing I'll add to Mike's comments is that the neighboring property owner, Kevin Conroy, again, who's on the call somewhere. Oh, there you are. He hired his own engineering firm, Redness and Mead, to look at the plans. They made their own revisions to the plans. And so there's been a whole lot of engineers that have looked at the plans to try to keep it as with the least impact as possible on the wetlands and still be functioning and economically viable. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Andy. Thank you.
Sure. Andy Sumalides, partner and professional engineer with Land Tech in Westport. I'm also a lifelong Norwalk resident, born and raised. So I could just share my screen right now. There we go. Everybody see that? Perfect.
Yep.
This is the existing conditions of the site. As Adam mentioned, the wetlands are to the eastern portion of this 2.6+ acre lot. The northwest portion contains the parking lot that we plan to expand. The property also traverses, or the project, I should say, traverses over 140 Rowayton Ave, which the 6th Taxing District has an easement over for this parking lot that exists and will be maintained with this proposal. Currently, access to the site is off of Rowayton Ave and Wilson Ave. Wilson Ave is just a one-way in. You would come in, there's angled parking, you would circulate through, and if you found parking or you need to exit, you would continue through and exit onto Rowayton Ave. So the Rowayton Ave easement, accessway easement, is the two-way portion of and the only egress out of the site. If you've been down in that area numerous times, I've seen it on my visits to the site. Frequently people are exiting out of the one-way in, and it's been a pretty big safety concern. So in looking at this project, we wanted to develop another way of getting out of this property on the 6th Taxing District's property. Right now, we at the mercy of Kevin Conroy. If you ever want to extinguish the easement, we'd be basically landlocked and have to create this exit anyway. So that was part of the thought of going into this. Under existing conditions, for drainage purposes, the parking lot from the east to the west drains into a series of catch basins and then onto an underground detention system and then out into Row 8 and Ave's drainage system. The eastern portion of the curb line and east basically sheets flow through the buffer and into the wetlands. Under proposed conditions, we will now create that exit drive onto Wilson Ave. So you can come in one way on Wilson, still circulate this parking lot, and then exit onto Wilson Ave, and again, exit onto Row 8 and Ave also still. In terms of the drainage improvements, the parking lot that currently existed will still sheet flow to the west to the existing catch basin, which we will upgrade with a urban filter, which provides water quality, and still into that detention system, and again, out into Row 8 and Ave. The new portion of driveway will sheet flow over a part asphalt now drive and a part pervious paver that Adam mentioned earlier. All these new parking spaces are now going to be pervious. We haven't selected exactly what that material is, but it'll be some type of probably concrete or grass paver type system. We'll price options out, but it will be a pervious application along the eastern edge, and it will traverse along the eastern edge curb line and into this catch basin, this new proposed catch basin, which will also be outfitted with one of those ultra urban sponges to provide an initial flush water quality, and then ultimately to a rain garden to provide both a decrease to the 25-year storm event and provide the water quality volume for this new impervious surfaces. We kept the rain garden the same size, even though we are now proposing pervious pavers there. This rain garden could get smaller in size, but we kept it the same size to provide that even additional water quality, even though we adjusted the pavers on the eastern portion of the parking lot. Let me go to the next slide. It talks about a little bit about the E&S controls. We will have a row of silt fence along the eastern edge of our development or proposed limit of disturbance. Construction will access off of Wilson Ave. The proposal minimizes the amount of disturbance in terms of milling and overlaying as much as possible the existing pavement to mesh into the proposed pavement. The proposed portion of the parking lot that we're proposing is probably roughly 55 cubic yards net of cut in that area is what will result in, which is basically 4 or 5 truckloads at max exiting this site. So it's really a minimal disturbance to the area, about a 3 to 4 month construction period to construct this. As part of this development, I'll go back a little bit. There are some existing light poles that will be relocated that are along this edge that get relocated along the eastern edge parking lot, and some of these landscaped islands also get relocated. So that's also part of this proposal. And now I think that in a nutshell is what our proposal is. I think Tom Ryder now will handle the bulk of the landscaping and wetlands evaluations and functions.
Andy, before you turn it over to Tom, can you just briefly go over that alternative plans that were
Sure.
considered?
Sure. So this was kind of the one, the 6-stack condition loved out of all of our options. It's very similar to what you saw as our proposal and what was our initial starting point with staff in reviewing our proposal. As you can see, these 90-degree spaces here butted up right up against this stone wall that we kind of used as a demarcation of our limits. But because the wetlands encroach close up to that stone wall in the southeast vicinity of this parking lot expansion, we then turned these spaces to become parallel spaces. So we expanded in some areas and lost in some, and we netted out with 61 spaces. This, I think, was like 62 spaces, but There's another iteration that got us to 65. I'll just run through these quickly. This again, one way in, and it created that exit drive that we liked. This basically, the sticking point here was the number of spaces. Again, as Mike stated earlier, Mr. Barbas, that this is an economical thing. We have to do some decent infrastructure here in terms of relocating lighting, landscaping improvements, drainage improvements, which we would have to do if we had 55 spaces or 65 spaces. It would be a very similar proposal in terms of all the economics that go into doing this project and relocating some of that infrastructure. So, or improving that infrastructure. So the key here was basically the quantity of spaces. As we progressed through these, this was just,
Andy, how many spaces were that last one, just to clarify?
this one, 14, I'll do it quick. 56.
Thanks.
This one was a little bit of a funky one we came up with, and probably a parking lot you've never seen. So this one just didn't make sense. Really, with you have 2 one-ways coming in, and this would create a traffic nightmare of cars continuously circulating the parking lot to find a space. This option, again, was an expansion and didn't have that exit drive here, which we thought was very vital to this parking lot development. And again, encroached in the southeast corner. Here's another option that's very similar to option number 2, but this one, again, didn't have that exit drive and reduced number of spaces. I think this has 51 spaces or 52 spaces. And again, this is another funky design we were trying to come up with. We were trying to come up with any kind of thing to expand this parking lot. Obviously, we can't expand to the north, west, or south. Our only point of expanding this parking lot is really to the east. So we looked at all various options of how to get there. We were trying to be creative a little bit and trying to get there, but we've probably never driven through a parking lot that looked like that, but we were looking at all kinds of options to try and get those number of spaces on this lot. So here I'll turn it over to Tom Ryder of our office to kind of go over the wetland functions, any impacts, and touch on the landscaping also.
Hi, Tom Ryder, Landtech. I'm going to be sharing my screen if I'm authorized. Let's see. Nope. Yeah.
How about now?
There we go. Thank you. You see my mouse? Is this working?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Awesome.
My charge in this particular project was to evaluate the wetlands, the natural resources of the wetlands, evaluate it for how it's functioning, determine any impacts that's going to be occurred from this, if any, work with the engineer to tweak those, to minimize them, and then to work to again with the engineer and the owners to work with a proposed buffer here, which I will get into in a little bit. The wetland basically here has 4 different little basins. It's kind of a microtopography. It's kind of a mosaic of wetlands and uplands, but the whole area is flagged as a wetland. But again, there's little sections of uplands in throughout here. And it's about 0.73 acres. We consider it a freshwater clustering wetland. And I mentioned it does have a few depressions in it. Mostly it's an overstory of red maple with occasional red oak, like I said, in the upland islands. It does have a moderate understory. Some of it is invasives. The more native ones are poison ivy and some alder. When I first looked in there, again, since there are some basins in here, I went and looked at them for vernal pool capabilities, and we looked at them over a 2-year period. Usually we don't have the capability to look over a 2-year period, but we were able to look at it last year and then this year, but we really didn't need the 2-year period. We found out initially that it does not have the hydro period for full metamorphosis. There's no standing water for very long periods of time. There is a basin down here that has water for longer periods of time, but it doesn't have anywhere near the capability for, metamorphosis for amphibians and frogs, other vernal pool species. And the other two are often just saturated soil. So we were able to eliminate that last year. We did, however, come back in and confirm it this year, and we found the same results. So these are not functioning as vernal pools. The functions that they are performing is groundwater discharge and flood flow alteration. This area comes down here, this area comes down here, and a little bit over here comes down into this little basin here. So we do have groundwater discharge during the springtime, and we do have water flowing in here from stormwater that is able to be attenuated by being held in the basins. But again, they drain out pretty quickly. The major portion of my work was how to protect these wetlands from the activity that we're proposing up here. And so what I did was focus a portion of my time on the buffer. Now, I do have some pictures of it I can show, but a lot of that is in my environmental reports. And if you want to see pictures, just ask, and I can put on the screen here. But basically, it's a red maple overstory with white pine and some hemlock. And the way I see this is that I think somebody probably proposed a red maples overstory here with some shrubs being the white pine and the hemlocks to screen this earlier on. However, those white pines and hemlocks have now grown up, and there's no longer an understory.
Jim, no.
Excuse me?
Sorry.
Oh, so there is no really an understory screening anymore. What I can do is, I was going to log off here and show some pictures, but I think this gets the point across. So what we're proposing then is to replace the hemlocks and the white pine, which again, you can see right through from one side to the other for the parking lot. It provides no escape cover, that currently doesn't provide any wildlife habitat, no screening, no light attenuation from headlights. And so what we're doing is we're going to be putting in red maples scattered along here. And I scattered them basically every 30 feet to allow for a suitable overstory cover, so that when the light hits it from the afternoon sun, these areas here will be shaded. But also I scattered them in a density to allow the understory to flourish. We have arrowwood and gray dogwood, which are good understory, shade understory species, but they also fill out quite a bit so that you can have these dense coverages here. So what I've prepared is that, and that's kind of what it's shown here. And the other thing that we're working back and forth with Andy on is the rain garden. I like the way that the rain garden is located. What it does is it provides natural biofiltration to the stormwater, which is currently what this buffer, it's currently what the buffer does. So therefore it basically does the same thing that it's currently done. So we're not losing any infiltration capability. Also, the imperviousness of this section of the parking lot here, along with this rain garden, mimics the groundwater infiltration that's currently being done. So the water going into the wetland is maintained. And we call that a water budget. So basically what we're able to do is maintain the water budget to this wetland. We're not starving it by taking water and drifting it elsewhere. So I personally like the rain garden idea, and I like the imperviousness. I mentioned that in my report. This area down here where the rain garden is will be planted with meadow grasses, and it provides an improved aesthetics to it, but it also provides excellent primary productivity, so we can get that stormwater treatment. The rest of it's in our reports. I think that's a good summary of it. But I think anything else, if everybody has any questions on this, I can explain it further. So I'll turn it back over to Adam.
Thank you, Tom. And I think last, Kevin Conroy, if you'd like to add anything, and then we'll conclude our portion of the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Adam. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Conroy, and I am the owner of the property 140 Rowayton Avenue, which is the contiguous property along Rowayton Avenue. A little bit of history. We did a pretty nice renovation there X number of years ago. I worked with Alexis at that point. It was an older lot. We did renovations. We put some new buildings in, redid all of the parking lots. And there was a lot of additional things to put in to protect the wetlands at that point. There were no retention systems in, there were no filter systems in. Everything just, was old school. And I think we're a good neighbor to the 6th District property and to the wetlands area. The district needs this parking badly. When I say the district, I mean everyone. I don't mean just the 6th District, the commissioners, I mean everyone, including myself. I've lived here and raised my family the last 40 years, run multiple businesses here, and I have tenants on this property, and we don't have enough parking. This is one of the few communities that has, 40 parking spaces for the entire town. I mean, it's almost kind of crazy, but it grew up along the waterfront, so no one's had parking. And as things have changed, it's very difficult. And quite honestly, exiting along my property under Rowayton Avenue because you can't circle is actually dangerous, because you've got to get onto exit 136 versus if you're going back on Wilson, you would come in through one side and exit where you're going, or you're going to go back on Rowayton Avenue and go that way anyway. Very skinny streets. And with some trucks coming down, I consider it clearly safer. I know the community supports this because good parking helps to make the community work better. And that's one of the things that we need. I know that annually we go out along the property line with the 6th District with an arborist to check the trees because of the wetlands. And we're concerned at times when there's maybe some water, some of the trees could be dangerous. So we together work and say what needs to be done, what needs to be trimmed. Do we need to cable anything? We take care of those things. So I think we're good neighbors. We need the parking. It's safety and it's good for the community. I think the district, and I hired, as Adam said, I hired Redness and Mead, who are very well known, to look at this and said, look, this is the best flow. This is great protection for the wetlands. Nothing's guaranteed Wetlands Commission, but if you do the right work and everything you possibly can, hopefully you'll get it done. So that's our goal, was to spend the right amount of money to demonstrate to you all we're doing everything we possibly can within a budget that makes sense, so we can get a little bit more parking for a community that really needs it. Any questions? I'm happy to answer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So if there's not questions at this point from the commission, we would end our portion and let you turn it over to the public.
No,
I have a question, Andy. Can you maybe tell us what is the pitch of the parking area? Is it level? I know you're talking about stormwater running off from north to south. Is that because the parking lot itself is angled slightly in that direction, or is it angled in some other way?
Sure. If I could just share my screen again, I'll show you. So currently, the parking lot drains north to south, east to west. And there's a little catch basin up here that captures a small amount of flow here. And the rest of the parking lot basically goes into this catch basin here.
Okay, but basically what you're saying is that it is mostly level or slightly pitched?
Slightly pitched, correct.
Okay. Okay, that said, the way you described it, the parking spaces on the left of the schematic that you're showing now tend to flow either northwest or south. And the stormwater runoff from the new parking spaces on the right-hand side are expected to be mostly absorbed by the pervious materials that you haven't yet decided on that you want to put in there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Those pervious materials have been known in lots of different situations to impact very quickly with sand and gravel and material from cars in such a way that they won't effectively absorb the water, and it will have to, I guess, run south unless it runs from the parking lot into the wetlands.
So the way this works is, and what we originally proposed was just this portion of parking lot, and this drive aisle goes into this catch basin and then into this rain garden. We left this rain garden size still the same, even though we created these pervious spaces. So we've basically increased that water quality volume and detention by this volume of pervious parking. So we didn't reduce the size of this. So to your answer, it's basically a maintenance thing with any drainage structures. If they're not properly maintained, catch basins, rain gardens, underground detention, it's not just the pervious pavers, then they don't work properly. You're right. So there's a maintenance plan that would accompany this to let the property owner know what are the proper measures and how to maintain all the pervious parking, the rain garden, the catch basins. It's basically a maintenance thing. But to your point, if these were to fail, this rain garden is still sized to accommodate the flows of this parking lot.
Well, since you still haven't chosen the pervious pavers, you still have an opportunity to try to find some that have stood the test of time where they've been used elsewhere.
Correct. A lot of folks now use porous asphalt. There's also a grass paved system. There's also, just brick pavers set on basically a stone dust or a crushed stone layer. So there's multiple options, and there's multiple, they're both all maintained relatively the same way. It's brushing debris off of it, making sure the surfaces stay clean so they don't get clogged. That's how these pervious surfaces really work.
Well, it's good to see how you could address the concern. The existing buffer area has long since been carpeted with sheets of fiberglass, which I suppose has not had much salutary effect on the wetlands or anything else. I presume that will all be taken up and disposed of, and the ground refreshed in some way so that it actually can absorb at least some water.
That is correct. So touching on that landscaping plan again, this whole area right up to the wetland line will be, like you said, refreshed with a meadow mix. So not only are we enhancing it with a scatter of trees and shrubs, the ground cover will be a meadow mix. So you'll essentially clean up whatever's there. We'll replenish the lawn and debris that's currently there with a nice meadow mix.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
Matt,
Matt, did you have something?
I have two questions. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just curious about the parking. I've done a number of site visits and I haven't seen that lot anywhere near close to being half as full. Do you guys have any evidence on the real parking need that shows that there's an issue?
So I guess we do. I mean, one of our commissioners, Tammy Langalis, who I think is still on the call, she works right there. So she surveys that lot every day. One, two, it is the real peak there's this new tenant. So they just started in the last, I don't know, month, 6 weeks, something like that. And then really when the demand is, when we're really, all our businesses are on fire, is when the weather's nicer. So I think in kind of January, February, it's not as obvious as when the weather is less onerous. I don't know, Tammy, do you have any other observations you'd want to add?
Did we lose Tammy?
Hi, everybody. Commissioner Tammy Langalis. Thank you for your time this evening.
I happen to work in my non-commissioner job right next door to the Rowayton Market, and I'm there pretty much every day, all day long. And the parking lot in both the area where Mr. Conroy owns and then our parking lot in the back is frequented in and out all day. And people park now in our back lot to those who work at the businesses on Rowayton Avenue. And there's a new children's clothing company next to my office. And frequently now, I usually get to the parking lot around 9:30 in the morning, and it's at least 2/3, if not 3/4 full with, I believe, the people that are working at that office. There are some other office buildings on the other side of the Rowayton Market, and I know there are a number of people that park there in our lot. And the Rowayton Arts Center has, our lot is where they park. And during COVID, the number of art students has definitely been lower, but in anticipation of COVID ending, which let's hope it does, the Art Center will open up and we'll be back to a full schedule of classes. And in the summer, the demand certainly is higher than it is perhaps in the middle of the winter. But also we see, seasonally, the shoulder seasons are popular as well. And then we do not allow overnight parking in the parking lot. That's a rule. We had some businesses trying to leave their contractor type trucks there a couple of times, and the district was quick to put up some no overnight parking signs, and we eliminated that issue. Thank you.
If I could just jump in a little bit on that. Hey, Matt, that was a good question. So I've been there 15 years on that, but 40 years in town. And I also owned the Rowayton Market for 15 years. So COVID has made the parking situation over the last year dramatically less. So if you were to go back pre-COVID and go look, the lot fills up. My entire lot actually fills up. And I have 100 parking spaces, and it'll fill up. And if they're not my tenants, they're actually people from across the street from the businesses that don't have enough. So they fill up in there. But I have not been exercising control on it because I want people to function, right? And so then I've seen that lot fill up many times. And one of the issue is as some of my own tenants say, we're paying rent and we can't get parking because the community's parking in ours. We need some more parking downtown so the whole town functions better. So, and then you have a lot of other functions that happen. You have the farmer's market on Fridays where my lot fills up, that lot fills up. So if you were looking at this pre-COVID, you would see it very differently than you might be looking at it right now.
Yeah, and Matt, if I may also, I represent from time to time the Ruth family who purchased a property down the street that, and they've been trying to lease their space up since they acquired the property. Mike Barbers talked about it a bit earlier, and they've lost quite a number of tenants simply because they can't offer those tenants the parking that the tenants need to operate their businesses. So I do agree that, on a day like today, I don't think I suspect the parking lot was not going to be over capacity. But if you go down there in the summer, even during COVID, during the summer, on a nice summer day, that lot is packed.
Could I just interject again? A couple of years ago, I did a traffic count myself during certain hours of the day, and I wasn't prepared to present that information now. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I just counted the cars at various hours of the day to see how full the lot was, and frequently it was full. So I think the pandemic is sort of changing the numbers right now, but I think that will bounce back once the pandemic is over. All right. So Commissioner Malin, there are 4 people as attendees potentially for public comment. So if I could just, if you want to enter the public comment kind of phase, and then maybe you can go back to more questions for the applicant if the commissioners have more questions. I did want to just confirm receipt of a 5-page letter from Miss Jennifer Jackson and Marty Hakala. I apologize if I've bludgeoned your name, dated yesterday, March 22nd, to be incorporated into the record for tonight's meeting. And then for those 4 attendees, if you're members of the public and want to speak regarding the item that the agency is currently considering, which is the expansion of the parking lot at 2 Wilson Avenue and 140 Rowayton Avenue, if you could use the raise your hand feature and raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak and give any additional testimony to the Inland Wetland Agency regarding this application. Now is your time to do that.
Okay, we'll hear from the public. We would request that the public bring us new information if possible and not reiterate information which we've already received. If there are commissioners who have other comments or questions, there will be time made available for that after the public has been heard from. Who do we have first?
I don't see anyone raising their hands, so they may just be listening in or attending for other comments. Oh, no.
I see 2.
Okay. So now
So
there
I
are
guess we'll
2.
start
Yeah,
with
so we'll start
Skylar.
with, actually, M. DeVita had their hand raised first earlier.
Sure.
We can allow them to talk. And for speakers, if you could just enunciate your name so that I can properly note you in the minutes of the meeting, that would be great.
So M. DeVita should be able to talk. I'm not sure if they're having any issues.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you? That's better. That's better. So we live at 22 Wilson Avenue. We're next door to Jen and Marty. We have an unobstructed view of the lot.
And I'm sorry, could you just state your name for us?
Yep.
Sorry.
Michael
Michael.
DeVita, DEVITA.
Thank you.
We have a pretty much unobstructed view of that parking lot year round from the back of our house, right out of our kitchen. And I think there needs to be a usage survey that doesn't include the people who want the lot. I think they're stating things that we have not seen. That lot is very rarely full, with the exception of Friday afternoons during the farmer market and during Shakespeare at the park. Otherwise, it can get busy, but it is never full, as far as I can see. And so I would like to see somebody who doesn't have a motive to exaggerate the usage, do a survey, please.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next one. Skyly.
Hi, this is Sharon Kiley, and that was just my husband, Michael, who just spoke. We attempted to send a letter to you, Alexis, multiple times today. I never got a notice that it was received. I started sending them at noon or so. But most of the things have been said, and I recognize people's time. And also, I'm curious from the commissioners in particular that if the buffer that was used way back when that Mr. Conroy mentioned, 50 feet or thereabouts, if that was what was thought of as adequate back in 2004 when the construction was done in the current parking lot, why is it that we feel that that buffer should be less now? And I've not seen any facts to support that. and don't understand that. And secondly, I know as part of a zoning discussion, but I really think there's been inadequate attention to the traffic and congestion in general in that area. And I am not convinced, while you may get 16 more parking spaces, that you actually are going to improve the livability of Rowayton. Thank you for your time.
And Sharon, I just checked my email. I still don't have an email from you, so you may want to just make sure that you have the correct email, which is available on the city's website under Conservation Office.
Next I see is Diane Lauricella.
Good evening, Conservation Commission. For the record, my name is Diane Lauricella. I live at 21 Blue Mountain Ridge Road. I have a lot of friends in Rowayton and frequent that very spot over time. The only reason I wanted to speak tonight was to ask if this application moves forward, that the commission asks for additional green infrastructure measures and does not use traditional impervious surfaces. I would ask that should this commission decide to approve, you have the right as a condition of the permit to request additional vegetation to reduce the heat island effect, meaning shade trees. So many of our parking lots are just magnifying the sunlight and become hot sweat areas. But in addition, having green infrastructure, meaning using rain gardens and pervious surfaces in at least some of the design of the lot, you can actually not only reduce the temperature of the runoff, but you can also find less expensive ways to have above ground filtration of the polluted runoff. In addition, harbor some wildlife, add to insect population, and in all increase the livability or sustainability related to what this commission's duties are. So I know that some mention was made of course, cleaning up the runoff. That's always a good thing, but I do believe this commission should start moving towards green infrastructure, using green infrastructure, and asking your applicants to first look to green infrastructure, not traditional old-fashioned underground tanks and pipes. Although, of course, at least we have that. So I thank you for your time and have a good evening.
And I believe that's it. I don't see anyone else raising their hand for public comment.
Thank you,
Well,
Michelle.
thanks to those who spoke. Are there commissioners who would like at this point to address the issue?
So I know that I had commented about the size of the proposed plantings. Some of them were 1 gallon container sizes, and I would recommend that those be larger. Those are quite small. And then I had a question regarding the proposed rain garden. I wanted to clarify what that was proposed to look like. I know in the detail, which is kind of a standard detail of a depression with a medium, and then it shows some shrub-like vegetation. But I know that in the description you had described a meadow-like condition. And then in the maintenance for the rain garden, it talks about mulched areas. And so I just want to make sure that I understand what the surface of the rain garden will be. Will it be mulched? Will it be a seeded, herbaceous basin, or will it have woody plants in it?
Andy, do you want that, or
Yeah, I could take that.
I can take it either way, not a problem.
I'm just pulling it up so we can share that detail really quick. I didn't show the details. So here's that detail Alexis is referring to. It is depicted with a, as Alexis mentioned, a typical detail of ours that shows some wooded shrubbery. There is 6 inches of a biomix soil. And then the upper portion will be that meadow mix. If you go back to that landscaping plan and, oh, panning too fast here. This area will all encompass that meadow mix as well. Tom can add to that also if you'd like.
Basically, Alexis, well, we're open to that. I don't really want trees in there, but I do like meadow in there. They usually rejuvenate a lot quicker. If there's a bare spot, you can usually recover fairly quickly that season or the next season. There is the capability of putting in some woody vegetation if the commission wants it for, maybe for screening or whatever. I would put it around the edges. But right now, we've proposed basically a meadow. But again, we are somewhat flexible in that ability as long as we maintain the function that we're proposing.
A meadow with no mulch. I was really kind of referring to the O&M in the stormwater plan talks about the maintenance of the rain garden and that the mulch and plantings be inspected and cleaned up and mulch replaced. But I really wanted to make sure that I understood that it was a meadow without mulch, or is it a plant with or plantings with mulch?
No mulch.
No mulch.
And,
Thank you.
And Alexis, you had, I think, as you mentioned, your initial comment was about some of the planting size. You had recommended to us that the birch be 6 to 7 feet and that the shrubs be a 3 feet minimum on planting. And that's something that we're acceptable with if that's what the commission would like. Additionally, if with the permission of the chair, if I can just address the 3 comments from the public that were raised. The first from Mr. DeVitz, I think, maybe I'm mispronouncing it, but from Michael, I think DeVitz, DeVita, he had a concern about the lot not being used too much. You sort of already heard from us about the usage of the lot, although in a way that's somewhat a red herring because if that is not a criteria that should weigh one way or the other in your decision for the impact on the wetland. I mean, we think it is. You heard the testimony that it wasn't, but it really is somewhat irrelevant. But we do believe quite strongly that it is extensively used, particularly in the summer. There was a concern raised by his wife, Steely, that in addition to that same concern that this may or may not help or hurt traffic and congestion. Again, that's not a consideration. And in fact, we have a traffic engineer. You don't even have the traffic engineer's report because it's not part of the submission to your body. He hasn't even finished it yet. But certainly that will go to the zoning commission. And if traffic is an issue created by this project, then they're not going to approve it. Ms. Lauricella suggested that we use green infrastructure. As you know, we are using, she said, use pervious pavers. We are using pervious pavers. She said we should have a rain garden. We are using a rain garden. She said we should add landscaping. This is a substantial upgrade in the landscaping from what exists. So while we don't quite get to the level that she's looking for, I think we more than protect the wetland and the wetland buffer with the proposal. Thanks.
Thank you all for your comments. Before we close, I would ask again.
I think, sorry, I think Commissioner Balliet has her hand raised,
Yes,
as does Commissioner
good.
Levin.
Hi, yeah, I have two questions. One is, I was curious what the current schedule is for clearing and cleaning out the catch basins and what that schedule will look like going forward. And I also wanted to ask, I think I heard that there were issues with snow clearing and where that snow was piling up. So I was wondering if there was a designated area for that or if there was a plan around that.
With respect to the catch basin, if anybody on the team knows the current schedule, feel free to offer it. And if you don't, I think Andy or Tom can tell you what the proposed schedule would be that we would, of course, agree to adhere to.
I can say, let me just tell you that the catch basins are currently on my property at 140. So we have been regularly cleaning them out. So I know that that's been done. I think Alexis maybe mentioned that she saw one of them missing a filter. Maybe, did I see that in a comment, Alexis? I'm not sure. But we do maintain all of those catch basins on my property. And so we will continue to do that, and whatever the commission says is a regular schedule for me to do mine, I'll do. As far as the district, I think they're going to do something different. But I want to add one thing while I have the moment. I just want to touch base on what Mr. DeVita said. I have to share, and I know Adam is correct in that it's really not part of the purview because you guys are really about how do we protect the wetlands. But one of the reasons that lot doesn't get as full, and even though it does fill, is because I allow a lot of the community to park in my lot, even though they're not my customers, and people who are paying rent, paying property tax, I'm snow plowing, I'm taking care of it. I realize that the moment we enforce that, that lot will be overrun. And this is part of the process. Again, not related to this, but I just wanted you guys to understand it from a very simple standpoint. I take 40 cars that are not mine and put them where are they going? The lot's full. So I'll maintain the my catch basins, Alexis, any way you guys all tell me to, and the district has got to tell you or you tell them how to maintain the new ones. Thanks.
Can I actually respond to that real quick? Is that possible? I just on the northwest corner on the site plan, it says full of debris in one of the catch basins.
Yeah.
So would that be, that's on the 6 taxing districts property?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, just check.
Right. So there are 2 existing catch basins, and the north west corner is completely full. And then the other one that I was referring to is in the southwest corner, which is technically on 140 Rowayton Avenue's property. And so that one of my follow-up questions was regarding the stormwater maintenance. You in the stormwater plan, you have an operations and maintenance plan, which has some language that I think is workable, but it is only for the components installed at 2 Wilson Avenue. So I just want some clarification regarding who is responsible, since I have both parties here, for the proposed, well, the existing and proposed catch basin that would be, if approved, at the southeastern corner of this parking lot that is technically on 140 Rowayton Avenue's property. Who is going to be responsible for the maintenance of that catch basin in the insert that
So
isn't currently there, by the way?
That new one, Alexis, is actually on, and I'll pull up the plan so everybody could see again. So here's the property line,
Mhm.
and here's that new catch basin. This is on the 6 taxing districts property.
I'm talking about the other,
This one?
the existing one that's going to
This
be
one?
moved slightly. Yep.
Yep. I think Adam can handle that, but let me talk a little bit about the program moving forward. I don't know what was approved back in 2004 in terms of operation and maintenance of these drainage structures, but we do have, as part of our application, a pretty detailed operation and maintenance log, and basically directions to the owner of how to maintain these structures and when to maintain them. The frequency was one of the questions. It's typically right after the fall season, when you get the leaf debris and a lot of debris at that point is recommended. And then before spring, so basically right after the winter, where you have a lot of snow melt and again, a lot of possible, runoff from the fall that carries over. So those are the two peak times to do maintenance on these structures. And there's also a detailed narrative of what needs to happen with all of these drainage structures and improvements. So that touches on moving forward. I don't know what was approved again back in 2004 in terms of maintaining these structures, but we do have a detailed O&M report, operation and maintenance of these structures moving forward.
So Andy, do you want to address Ms. Balliott's question regarding snow removal?
Sure. I think Adam can handle that, and he can also handle. Sure.
Sure. So for snow removal, the historical practice has been to by the plow company to plow the snow untreated towards the buffer area, and that's what's always occurred on the site. If we kept it in the same practice, that would obviously keep all of the spaces free in the winter time. But if that is of concern to you, then we can instruct the plow company to plow away from the buffer and to pile the snow, which will then occupy some of the spaces during the winter months.
I also just want to say there was in that letter they talked about, there were chemicals and treatment, but we don't use any of that at all, except for a little salt on the asphalt, same salt used by the city. That's the only thing we put down. And the same thing with the lot. I checked with Kevin earlier today. It's the same thing with the lot at 140, which a different company plows, but they don't use any chemicals either. So there's no sodium chloride or any of that stuff being dumped into the buffer zone, never has been.
And as far as maintaining the catch basin that's on Kevin's property, do we have an agreement, Kevin, Mike, for who will be responsible?
I thought we had all agreed that we would take responsibility for that. I thought that was what was discussed earlier, but maybe that was another issue.
Yeah,
but I'm
that's
sure
fine.
we'll work. I mean, we're partners, we'll work it out. I will say in terms of the question about what the practice has been, this lot was built in 2004. No one from that era is still at the 6th Taxing District Commission. And our attorney at the time who handled this whole case with Frank Zullo, who's not with us anymore. So I was not aware of there needing to be a schedule, to be honest with you. And I guess that was unfortunate. We're now going to have a schedule. We do have regular contact with Alexis about all the trees in there because some of them have fallen. We've tried to figure out what to do. Should they be removed? Should they be left? So we've had a regular dialogue about the woods there, but the issue of the catch basin, I don't know, it never came up previously.
I think that's why it needs to be clarified now. It would be the time to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm if there's a company we should hire, we'll just be on an annual maintenance contract or whatever needs. We were not aware of that. I'm sorry.
And so Chairman Malin, Mr. Levin and Mr. Clockey both have their hands raised.
I just want to make sure Ms. Balliot got her question answered satisfactorily, and then we can go to Commissioner Levin.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Levin, please.
Sure. And I'm just going to apologize because I think I've got a couple of general questions about the project. And I believe some of these were actually answered principally by Mike Barbas and Mr. Blank 2 weeks ago. And I'm asking again because I cannot find my notes from that meeting and my memory does not provide. Or this information is already provided in the original plan narrative, which I'm sure I've read at least once. This project is to provide 16 additional parking spaces to an existing parking lot that has how many existing parking spaces?
43.
43.
Okay. 43 between what we own and what Kevin owns.
Okay.
And it's 18 additional.
Oh, it's 18 additional. Okay.
Correct. It goes from 43 to 61.
Okay. And this is a public parking lot, is that right?
That's correct.
And it's posted as such. It's identified. There's like a signage that says
There is signage that says the Ambler Municipal Lot.
okay. Which I guess is kind of like saying it's public parking open to the public.
Yes.
Okay. And this is free parking.
Yes.
But the 6 STD at any time could choose to meter it if it wanted to.
Yeah, I guess. The thought had not crossed our mind, but
Okay.
I guess it could be an option.
Okay. And is this time limited, or could somebody choose to park there the whole day if they wanted to?
They could park there the whole day. There's no time limit. The only thing is no overnight parking.
Okay. And overnight is just sundown, or is that?
I guess it's, 2 in the morning, we used to have some kids kind of partying back there at one point. Then we had people storing cars there. We had people storing some kind of, vans. We had one person let a friend from New York just store their car there. So we've had, those are the kinds of issues we've had. So we just have no overnight parking. We're not patrolling it every night. We keep our eyes on it. And if we notice a car is there for days on end, we typically we do have stickers that we put on the car.
And I think you said 2 weeks ago that there's $500,000 budgeted for this project.
Three, I can't remember if it's 3 or 350, 350, I think it is. But we haven't, we don't have a final plan, so we haven't gone to bid.
Okay.
This was the number I gave you, and I'm giving you again, is really just a rough number that we got from Land Tech.
Okay. And I'm just curious, where does that money come from?
So if you own a house in the 6th taxing district, you pay your tax bill to the city of Norwalk. In the old days, you would pay 2 tax bills, one to the taxing district, one to the city. Now the city collects, and about 5% of your property tax bill comes back to us. So we have a budget of about $1.8 million every year.
Okay. And that's for infrastructure and.
It's for, we have a small office. We provide garbage pickup service. We pay for streetlights. We give a grant to the Rowayton Library. We give about them 2/3 of their funding. Those are our biggest expenses.
Okay. Cool. And I would just comment and suggest that if it is free public parking, it might be worthwhile to actually post signage that shows that it is free public parking, that everyone who is part of the public can use and park there for free. If just labeling it municipal lot might be kind of a little bit of insider baseball, if you know what I mean.
And if you've gone to the site, we do have a lot of screening there. We've tried to kind of, whatever. It's not hidden, but, we haven't wanted to have bright lights and advertise it. But especially now, if we have a proper entrance, we could easily have a sign there saying these spaces are provided by the 6th taxing district for free for everyone to use, no overnight parking, and call it a day.
I'm sure you'll figure it out. Okay, thank you.
If it gets approved.
Any other commissioners have a question for any of the applicants?
I think Steve Clocky had his hand raised, and then Commissioner Marin does as well.
Barry, you wanna go ahead, or?
Yes, I have 2 questions about this, and you're probably not going to like the question, but back in 2004, the promise was made to take care of the buffer, and we've heard all these arguments before, and we haven't been presented with the alternatives where you wouldn't need to use our buffer in the first place. So my real question is, if you couldn't take care of your commitment from 2004, why should we believe you now that you're going to take care of the buffer in the future? Number 1. And 2, not considering the cost, have you looked at the alternatives and are they feasible? So those are my really two questions I have for you. And there's probably a third question here too, is you're taking our buffer away from us. And if you decide to build, let's say, a parking garage in the future, are you going to give our land back to us? So there's really three questions there. And I know those aren't the questions you wanted to hear, but quite frankly, I'm pissed off about what you guys did on the 2004 agreement. And why should we believe you now? Why aren't you doing something more constructive to get people in and out of that lot instead of having to build more parking spaces? Those are my comments.
So I think the answers to those may come from different folks on our sort of team here. With respect to why not taking care of the buffer, I think, look, Mike or Tammy or John, they've been on as commissioners subsequent to that initial approval. So I mean, there's a new regime, and that they weren't a part of that 2004 approval. I think Andy or Tom may be able to talk about in the buffer area. It's my understanding that a fair amount of the degradation in the buffer is not because of a failure to maintain, but because of aging of the species of plants that were put there and the canopy above. Andy or Tom, do you want to?
Yeah, I can take that. I have no history on what was maintained or how in the past, but my response can be that the buffer there now is that the trees that once provided high-level screening, such as the white pine, are now very tall and no longer do so. And that they are also mid-successional species, meaning that they grow in once a meadow, like for forest fire or whatever, come in, there was a meadow that's cleared, they would come in immediately and then they'd be overshadowed by what they call the climax species of the oak and maple. So they don't typically live that long anyway. So what we're doing actually is putting in the red maples and the birches and the dogwoods that have a lot longer lifespan. And we're taking this opportunity now to enhance what's there. So that's my experience with this and what we're trying to provide.
And certainly,
I think I would just say in terms of, when that project was built, the guy who was our property manager at the time was a gentleman named Bert Schatz. And I had him fired because he was incompetent and was not doing a good job. So, between him and we used a company called Grumman Engineering, which when I tried to do any follow-up with, I couldn't even get them to return phone calls. So I think the team that worked on this in 2004 was whatever. I'll be nice and I'll just say they were less than professional. That doesn't necessarily excuse, but it's not like that buffer zone is filled with garbage or has been damaged to my knowledge. I don't know why that what is it called? What is it called? Alex, it's that layer, that weed barrier, whatever, which is so junky.
Like the
fiberglass
landscaping
sheets.
geotextile.
Yeah,
I mean, I have no idea why that was ever in the original plan. I would have thought it might have been part of the original plan, but I have no idea. It was way before my time. And we have tried to look after, actually, Commissioner Halowinko, those woods. And you can talk to Alexis. I must reach out to her at least twice a year as to how we should maintain that wetland. And we've talked to her about, should we have paths there, walkways? Should we remove some of these trees? Should we leave this debris on the ground? And we probably spend, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000 a year with Brown Tree trying to do what Alexis tells us to do with these damaged trees.
So Mr. Halowinko, another one of your questions or concerns was about looking at, you said without looking at the cost of alternatives, why haven't we looked at other sort of feasible alternatives. And under your regulations, there's two ways that you evaluate. There's feasible and prudent alternatives. One is based on cost, what can be afforded or not, and that's something that is supposed to be considered. If it's not economically feasible, then it's not a reasonable alternative. The other one, though, is from an engineering perspective, is what's practically sort of feasible. And there's no way for us to get 18 additional spaces on this site without going into the buffer. Andy went through various design permutations. The only options are don't expand, which defeats the purpose of the application. Expand upward or below grade structure, which probably has a more significant impact on the wetland and is cost prohibitive, or extend into the wetland. And I think we've tried to do it in the most delicate way we can, but there was no way to design it without extending into the wetland buffer. We're not in the wetland, and we don't believe we have any impact on the wetland, but it certainly is in the buffer. If you'd like Andy to talk about the alternatives that were considered, we can talk further about that.
I just want to also touch upon the 2004 approval. Drainage has significantly changed in terms of the city's regulations also from what happened in 2004. The city just adopted, I want to say in 2018, a very serious drainage manual to accompany these projects. So you are getting a significantly increased I would say, than what you would do in 2004 in terms of drainage infrastructure and drainage improvements on this piece of property. I believe Alexis put up the 2004 approval, and the Northwest Catch Basin gets piped directly to the wetlands, untreated, to a level spreader, essentially, that goes through this buffer. We are fixing that situation currently with our proposal. I guess I should have touched upon that a little bit in my testimony earlier, or my presentation, but we feel that even though 2004 they received X amount of spaces and did whatever improvements, from a drainage and environmentally impactful proposal, we feel like this is a significant improvement than what was approved in 2004, even though we are expanding the parking lot.
And then finally, your third question related to if the taxing district decides to build a parking structure here at some point in the future, or make some other use of the property, would the sort of I'll call it the buffer land, which I think is what you meant, would that be sort of restored to a buffer as opposed to parking? And look, I don't believe that's a condition that you can impose on us, and I don't think it's something we can agree to now. But what I can tell you, which hopefully gives you some comfort, is that if we were to ever come back to do a parking structure, we'd be right back in front of you or your successors on the Wetland Commission for their approval, and they very well might say that they're not willing to approve a parking structure or some other building within the wetland area without further improvements to the wetland buffer, which might mean ripping up the pervious pavers and putting down landscaping or some other devices. So basically, you're going to get another crack at this. If there's a future change to the plans, it comes back to you guys anyway.
And Adam, I might just add one more thing. You know, raised parking structures are really expensive. And, you know, let's say even if we just built one for 25 spaces, that would be, the cost of that would be over $2 million. And as I said, our annual budget for the taxing district itself, employees, everything we do, is only $1.8 million. So that would mean we'd have to raise our taxes by double or do something kind of drastic. I don't see a situation where we ever be financially even in a position to do that.
I think Commissioner Clockey had his hand raised, and then Commissioner Marin.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I mean, I hear someone say something one way and someone say something another way, and we seem to be just like going around in circles. Nature is going to do what nature does. If we couldn't figure out the right trees to plant 16 years ago, I am not confident we're going to have the right pervious pavers or the right rain garden or whatever now. I look at the plan that was approved and what was built, it makes sense to me. It seems reasonable. I like the way it was and the way it is, even though it's kind of gone to crap in some ways. So I'm just not sold, sorry. I'm not willing to trade off on what maybe it's not a very sexy wetland, but still a functioning wetland in at least a couple of primary ways. So irregardless of zoning and who pays for it and all that other crap, it's just, I don't trust, you made the point of the turnover in the office. I mean, we're relying on people to do things that counteracts what nature is going to do naturally. And so it just seems too easy to drop the ball. So I'm just letting you know, I'm comfortable with the way it was approved back in the day, and I'm going to take my cue from them at this point.
Just to state real quickly on that, just to follow up on that, there was nothing wrong with the buffer that was planted long ago. All we're saying is that it's kind of at the end of its life, and improvements can be made to it. That's all I was saying.
Commissioner
So,
Marin.
Commissioner Marin.
Thank you. So I have a few questions that might have been addressed already, but I just want some further clarification. So first, I'd like to know, how do we know that the rain garden will be effective enough? Do y'all have any comparative studies from the rain garden versus any other water basin that you've examined? Also, why aren't you proposing a rain garden on the other side? If it is a greener option, then it should be extended to both sides. And then next, I know someone had mentioned before, but I am really concerned that the shrubs aren't going to be sufficient enough to provide shade and thermal protection. I'm requesting that you explore replacing the shrubs with more mature trees. It is not a true one-to-one as was proposed. So I'm requesting that a tree is being placed instead of shrubbery.
I'll take the first two, and then I'll give it off to Tom to take the last one regarding landscaping. In terms of the rain garden is basically an industry standard. It's part of your drainage regulations. It's part of the Connecticut State Drainage Manual. It is a low impact development drainage infrastructure. It's a tried and true proven method. It's not a new proprietary system. We've used it plenty of places. You guys have it all over Norwalk. A big one that you'll see is one on Connecticut Ave in front of the Lowe's, surrounded by a split rail fence. That's a large rain garden there. And I don't think you guys had any issues there that I am aware of. So it is a tried and true proven method, and works very well in terms of what Tom mentioned earlier to promote infiltration adjacent to wetlands. And it's a good application in this project. We could have easily done underground detention, which segues into your second question. The southwest catch basin currently goes to an underground detention. There is no landscaping area there. It's primarily all paved area there, so there's no opportunity really to do a rain garden there. And then as part of the 2004 approval, there is an existing underground detention system there that handles that runoff. We are improving the water quality by putting in a ultra urban filter in that catch basin to further promote the first flush of water quality. Tom, if you want to handle the tree versus shrubs question.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with putting in another couple trees. The reason I put it in the way it was to provide an overstory plus an understory. But I don't have any problem with making a more complete overstory. This is going to get some afternoon sun in there, and we do have shade tolerant shrubs proposed. So I don't have any problem with putting in another couple trees to make it more uniform along the top of the canopy.
Okay, is any other commissioner have a question or comment? Hearing none, I thank everyone for coming and for their patience, and we look forward to a good outcome.
All right. So commissioners, at this point, you need to determine whether you've had a fair amount of comment tonight and questions. If you want anything substantially, new or different from the applicant, you would keep the public hearing open. If there's other little things when you haven't had any discussion yet, you can have that after the close of the public hearing. And obviously it's your decision whether you approve or deny the application. If you approve it, some of the things that you discussed can be kind of clarified with conditions, and the applicant doesn't need to submit necessarily entirely new materials, like the planting plan, for example. We were just talking about a couple new trees. An application, you could require a modification to include whatever, two more native shade trees within the buffer. So just wanted to throw that out. Additionally, if you haven't visited the site and you do close the public hearing tonight, you should not visit the site until you make a decision. I think I had mentioned that before. The time to visit the site and to gain that visual information is prior to the close of the hearing. And I think Commissioner Levin has his hand raised, or no? Never mind.
I do have my hand raised, and I have a question. Although I can't quite formulate it as a question, I have perhaps an observation that I wish to share. And that is, clearly parking is valuable. Parking is very valuable. And, this project is clear proof of that. And I have no ability to debate whether the parking is needed or not. But it's clear that parking is valuable. It has, and in many places, especially in many places in Norwalk, there's parking is metered, or you have to pay for parking. There's lots of free municipal parking, and there's also paid for parking. And I realize that in the future, subsequent managers of the 6th STD may have to choose to, meter the parking spaces, or basically charge money. And then the 18 spaces that are being added will be generating revenue, additional revenue, either for the 6th STD or for the city of Norwalk. I don't know which. So I'm just wondering if that were to unfold in the future, would the commission be, is the commission then being asked to give up buffer space for taxable, for revenue producing parking spaces? Now, how do I formulate that as a question? I don't know. Is that even, I'm too new to the commission to know whether that's relevant. Do you ever attach conditions where, if the parking spaces become metered in the future, will a portion of the revenue have to go into the open space fund or something like that? I'm ignorant.
Well, since it doesn't impact the wetland, can we not vote on that? Can we not do that?
So, yeah, I think that you need to try to stay focused on your jurisdictional limits of what are the impacts to the wetlands and watercourses. So what are the proposed activities, and how will the proposed activities impact the wetland and the watercourse, either through direct impacts, and I think the applicant's saying that they don't have any direct impacts, or the temporary impacts. And then you have to decide, are those temporary impacts mitigated through the other activities that they're proposing, whether it's landscaping or stormwater management. So the actual use of the parking lot and how it's paid is beyond your jurisdictional reach, I would advise. I suspect that the counsel for the applicant would agree. But yeah, I really don't think you can tie that in. You can't require an easement. You can't require revenue sources be directed to something protective of the wetland. An applicant can suggest that as part of their mitigation in their application for you, but that has not been presented here. So as far as I'm aware, it's not on the table.
I have a question. Has there been any discussion about any electrical charging ports in the parking lot? That assumes there's nothing there now. But.
Is a public hearing, am I permitted to speak?
The public hearing is still open. We haven't closed it yet.
Okay.
So you are allowed to speak.
So it has not come up with respect to wetlands. I know that zoning does in certain situations require electric charging. I don't know, Mike or Tammy or John, if the taxing district has considered it or wants it, but it hasn't been part of this proposal.
This is the first time it's come up. We do, because of we have lighting in the parking lot. We do have an electric meter there, but that's the issue has not come up.
Curious.
So any more?
Yeah, just one quick question for Mike. At one point, Mike, you said there's no final plan. Could you clarify that for me? Because I think we're looking at what is supposed to be pretty much of a final plan for tonight.
Well, just that these plans have evolved, right? So when we first came to you, we didn't have permeable pavers. Those have now been added. The tree count and the size of trees has grown as well. So it's been a little bit, we haven't had, we need you and I think the zoning commission to approve this before we'd have a finalized plan that we then could go to a contractor.
Fair enough.
That's what I meant by that.
Okay, fair enough.
We're not going to change it. Once you approve it, we're not going to change any of what we agreed to. I don't think we could do that, even if we wanted to.
No, I just want to make sure that all of you were in sync, and you are. Okay. Alexis, I think we may have completed.
We need to address the comment that's there, or?
You're welcome to.
They're coming in the chat. So, technically the public comment period ended. I think it's so understood. It's Mr. DeVita clarifying that his point was that it's returning to the use of the parking lot and how much parking is needed, and asking for an independent assessment. And again, I think I just to remind you of your jurisdictional limits, and when someone makes an application before you, you do look at the purpose of the proposed activity, but only to a point. So just like someone proposing to construct a duplex, you wouldn't necessarily grill them on whether people are really looking to live in duplexes and would rather have a single family house. You're looking at the construction and the activities related to the construction of that duplex. Does that make sense? So
yes, it does.
At the end of the day, the applicant's looking to build a parking lot, whether they have the data to justify its use doesn't matter too much. They want to use their money to construct it, and it's your job really not to determine whether the parking lot is absolutely needed or if it's worth their funds. It's whether the construction of the parking lot will that lead to an unreasonable impact to the wetland and water course. Or if it is leading to impacts, are those impacts mitigated? And then make your decision. So that's my spiel. So it sounds like you might be ready to close the public hearing.
It
That's
does.
what I'm gathering.
I
Okay,
just,
so maybe
I
just
just want to add, I'm sorry, let's interrupt. I just wanted to add one last comment.
Yes.
To back to the 2004 approved plan, just so the commission is aware, that was based on 1983 drainage manual. The drainage manual has not been updated since 1983, and it's just been updated in 2017. So just because it was done in 2004, you're still looking at 1983 standards of that parking lot. And I think that'll be a huge improvement now, now that we're in 2021, to bring it up to at least 2017 standards. Just wanted to add that in there.
And since you brought it up, I would just add that I think that the stormwater works best when it is maintained. And so it's imperative to have a very, very clear and very precise language for the future maintenance. Because the approved 2004 plan, both catch basins were required to, they did have a maintenance schedule submitted as part of the application. And they did have inserts in both catch basins. One did lead to a level spreader, I agree, but with if it was maintained properly, that water quality would have met today's standards for quality at least. So maybe a motion to close the public hearing. In the absence of a motion to close the public hearing, someone voicing why the public hearing should be continued.
So moved.
We'll move on.
I second that motion. Oops. Yes, I second that motion to close the public hearing.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right.
Okay, we have completed the agenda.
So if the public hearing is closed, if you want to have any further discussion, so applicant's team is welcome to listen, but you cannot speak at this point regarding anything that's under discussion.
It would seem like there's been an ample opportunity for both presentation and expression of concern. Would it be reasonable to say that we could look at something that would constitute a proposal or a resolution to be considered and voted on by the commissioners? There's been ample expression of concern. And I think before we were to get to the point of voting, that it would be useful to see if we can consolidate the concerns into a document that might be functional. Would that be the next step? I mean, would that be what we would do?
Yeah, so any guidance in advance to your next meeting, I will draft some sort of resolution. And so if you point me in the right direction, if I can write a gazillion resolutions, so you can indicate that you might be willing to approve such application if X, Y, and Z is addressed, or you can indicate that whatever concerns you have about the application and preliminarily why you're leaning towards denial. let me know any thoughts. And I will turn those into a resolution for you.
I think we should have 2 resolutions drafted, one for and one against. Speaking for myself here, I think it has been a priority of this commission to always include a significant buffer of some distance. And this project is clearly taking away land for that buffer area, and it's not being replaced anywhere. And once we give up land, we don't get it back ever. So, I mean, that would be, that's one point. And the second point is there are alternatives to these parking spaces that should be considered. And I think the job that they presented I think what they presented on their current alternatives just don't seem adequate. No, that's what I gotta say.
So noted.
So do you want to try to work with a sense of the meeting, Alexis, or would you like a motion in terms of what our next step should be?
No, I don't think a motion at this point. So I'm just looking for guidance for when I, write a memo and try to encapsulate your whatever you're thinking. But
the memo is extremely useful for us because it hews strictly to the laws and regulations, which many of us, myself included, are not as up to speed on as we would like to be. And it offers us something that we can consider. And then we take a vote, which is our job, and it's either positive or negative. I'm not so sure that you can write a resolution to deny an application. I think that if you effectively put your best foot forward, there's still the opportunity for a commissioner who wishes to vote negative on it to do so. My own feeling would be to put together the best, to put it in as pragmatic, objective, and positive a light as possible. And then we will take it from there. Is that helpful?
I've kind of put Alexis in a hard spot because, I mean, I think a couple of us have, or at least a couple of us are thinking, unless there's a major change to what's proposed, there's really no way we're voting for it. So I think, and then if there was a significant change to design, let's say, for example, we ask the design team and the applicant to switch up their priorities. The priority is maximize parking spots. That makes sense. Nobody's saying you shouldn't want to do that. Nobody's saying you shouldn't want to support your businesses and your properties and all that stuff in the town. I mean, that's not what we're arguing. We're strictly concerned about water in our area. So like, what if we, instead of, the priority being maximizing parking and then, seeing if we can satisfy the wetland people, is there room in the scope to consider additional designs that maybe aren't maximizing the parking spaces, but might also be affordable and do a better job of addressing potential runoff from the site?
I think the way that works, Steve, is that if the commission votes to deny the application, the applicant comes back, if they will, with some other kind of proposal.
Okay, that's fine. So, yeah, if that's where we want to go, then we'll let nature take its course.
Well, we could, I mean, it's not, we are not forbidden to take a vote now. based on what we've heard. I guess I'd be interested to see a sort of a sense of the meeting from the other commissioners,
Yeah.
if that's something they would like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't recommend you can't really pre-vote. You vote once. So I guess I would not recommend a vote. But that doesn't mean that individual commissioners can't articulate, concerns or their leanings like Commissioner Helmico did earlier. But I wouldn't, you can't vote twice. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So.
Well, then at this point, I mean, might it be said that you've heard enough from us to get some
Yes.
kind of an idea?
No, I'm joking. Yeah,
So what
I think in all seriousness, I think I have a lot of notes, and you have time to render a decision after you've closed the public hearing. It's not like I will give you a memorandum with a variety of different resolutions in it. You can look at those. Those are, as always, draft resolutions. So they're just staff's guidance and articulation of what I think that you're thinking. And then you don't have to make a decision. You can write back to me individually and say, no, this is what I meant. You can discuss it further with each other at your next meeting. You don't have to make a decision at the next meeting. You can continue to discuss and send it back to staff to write a better resolution that's better reflective of what you want, and then make a decision at the next meeting. So there's absolutely.
So I wish to make an observation. What Alexis has just described is an iterative process, or potentially iterative process. But I feel as if the process itself is fundamentally handicapped because there's no opportunity to negotiate directly with the applicant. And I feel as if,
What are we
You're more like-
negotiating though? I mean, I don't understand. It's not a socioeconomic struggle. We're just talking about
No, I understand
how
that.
the wetland is affected.
Right. I understand that. So, again, the commission's task is very narrowly defined by these strictures of the statutes. But again, as you've already pointed out, Steve, doing nothing is the most benign, in all cases, doing nothing is going to be the most benign treatment. This applicant is applied to do something, and is there an opportunity to negotiate something between nothing and something?
Well, that's what I was suggesting. Is there a different approach to the design that may be more appealing to the commission? And I'm willing to keep this going for another round to see if they want to submit that, or if next time we want to. Oh wait, do we have time to do that, Alexis?
Yeah, no. So once you close the public hearing, that was my little spiel, right?
Okay. Well then, yeah. Then I guess. I'm sorry. It's too late. Sorry.
Right. So within the process, right, you can go back and forth, and but once you close the public hearing, that's what you base your decision on, is what you've gotten up to this point in time.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood that.
That's all right.
Ultimately, each individual commissioner who are uniquely and very well qualified for their jobs makes a decision and is given the opportunity to vote, and the vote gets added up, and that's how it goes. And probably not every single person is going to be happy with whatever that outcome is, but it will be an informed decision that's bounded by the law and by what we're allowed to do.
Okay.
All right.
So I will draft some resolutions for you.
And looking at the agenda, I don't see anything here that we haven't covered, with the exception of adjournment.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. I mean it seriously.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
See you next time.